So obviously Dean Huijsen is a centre-back, and hopefully if he was to join Liverpool, he'd be joining Liverpool with Virgil van Dijk at the club, because he's out of contract, and obviously Mohamed Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold are also out of contract at the end of the season. Now, there hasn't been too many updates in regard to potential extensions being agreed or potential departures, but instead of asking you about maybe an update as to whether you've got any insight into whether they've finally signed the extensions, I wanted to ask you whether you think that anyone holds responsibility for allowing this situation to develop, because I've seen on social media recently, some people have blamed FSG, some people have blamed Michael Edwards, others have even blamed Jurgen Klopp for allowing the situations with the contracts to get to this point. So where do you see any blame, if you see any blame at all?
Yeah, I think the blame can be shared out between a few people, really. I mean, look, it's a tough one because, hindsight is always 2020. But at the time that FSG decided to give more power around recruitment to Jurgen Klopp, there were benefits there in that Liverpool continued, I think, to make decent signings. I mean, look at the position they're in now. That I don't think he signed any duds, although maybe in attack, a couple of those could have been slightly better than they've worked out. But I don't think Liverpool signed any duds. I think, you look at that midfield rebuild last summer, the fact that Jurgen was given that power, gave him a couple more years where Liverpool challenged for and did win trophies. So it wasn't, and also he probably done enough to earn it, hadn't he, in terms of how much he'd done at Liverpool. So you can't begrudge that decision too much, but there were consequences from that. And obviously the first of those was Michael Edwards departing. Then after that, obviously Julian Ward left after, it was announced he was leaving less than kind of 6 months into the role. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Jurgen was given more power around recruitment, and it essentially made the sporting director role quite pointless. So obviously Liverpool's response to that was to bring in Jörg Schmadtke, but his role and his purview was so short term. It wasn't thinking about, we have to get these contracts signed up, we have to do this, that, or the other. It's kind of get these transfers over the line, that sort this midfield rebuild out this summer and get Liverpool back challenging next season. And he absolutely nailed that brief. But so much of the long-term stuff kind of went to the side then and didn't get sorted out. And, you throw in the fact that Jurgen wasn't able to sit down with any of these players and say, I'm going to be here in 2 years' time. This is what it's going to look like. This is what your role is going to be. And that again added more it clouded the contract situation even further. So I think between FSG giving that power, Jurgen Klopp wanting it and accepting it, that really has created these conditions. I would also say one kind of oddity around this as well, just on Trent Alexander-Arnold, is that he did sign a 4-year contract last time. It doesn't get spoken about enough for me. That was clearly targeting to put himself in a situation where he had the option to do this, to go to Real Madrid or Liverpool, and because that is not a contract length that Liverpool would have given out easily. They would have much preferred 5 years. So you throw all these things together, and Liverpool are in this situation now, and you've got a new sporting director getting his feet under the table and handed an absolute hospital pass, really, in terms of this. And I've seen he's getting quite a lot of blame, but it's such a difficult situation. These things take a long time to sort out. And so when he came in the summer, it was like, it wasn't just going to get sorted immediately. So particularly as no legwork had been done by his predecessor on it. So yeah, there's a lot of blame and different aspects thrown into there. But I do think, FSG in terms of long-term health of the club might look back on that decision to give Jurgen all that power and maybe slightly regret it. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact now that Arne Slot has that title of head coach. That is really telling for me, and I think these contracts really tie into that whole thing.
Yeah, well, we'd obviously hope that the three of them extend their time at Anfield, but do you think that, say, if one of them was to depart, that it would kind of signal the end of Jurgen Klopp's time at Anfield? Because a lot of his decisions, good and bad, are still affecting the club. So if one of them, or even if all three of them were to depart, do you think that maybe would signal the start finally of the Arne Slot era, even though he's about to win the Premier League title with Liverpool?
I think this summer is going to be that regardless. I mean, even if they keep 2 of the 3, say Trent does fancy the try out the Real Madrid thing, I think there's going to be a bit of a revolution going on this summer regardless, because there's doubts over the futures of so many people in that squad. I mean, we're talking about Joe Gomez there, Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz is another one. obviously there's going to be changes, I think, in other areas. Wataru Endo, if Trent does go, then there's a right back issue. Left back is going to be a new signing there, so probably Kostas Tsimikas, I expect he would leave. So you could get yourself in a position where there's 4 or 5 signings straight off the bat, and then if you lose a couple more from the contracts than you're expecting, then you've got to add. You were getting towards 6 and 7 signings. So I think there's going to be a big change anyway, and a real different look to the squad when we come to the start of next season. So maybe that will be the kind of the real start of the Arne Slot era, and this new era as well. Under I say new era, it's back under Michael Edwards, isn't it? But it does feel like a new era. So I think the real starting gun for that is going to be this summer, and it's going to be a summer of change, which may have knock-on effects, by the way, in terms of Liverpool defending the title and being quite as competitive next season. Might have to take a step forward step back, to take 2 forward, but we'll see on that. But I think there's going to be a big summer of change coming for Liverpool, and I would very, very rarely, and I don't think I've ever said this before, ever predicted that, really, despite I know others have, but I really do think this is going to be a big and important summer for Liverpool.